The question in this particular case was from a client who asked, well, I have a company, it has excess cash, it also has a trade. The client is wanting really to invest some of this excess cash in, in property and maybe maintain some of the excess cash outside of the trade, because if it's kept there, there's a risk that the trade could bring down the excess cash in the investment properties. And they would also like to be able to loan the money between, let's say, any cash or investment property company and the trading company, so that, and to do that, obviously, it has to be done in compliance with company law. So one possible mechanism to do that would be to create a group structure. So there are various reliefs in tax legislation to permit the creation of a group. So if we just look on screen here at a drawing I've done just beforehand, you can see I'm not the best at writing on the screen, but hopefully you'll get the point here. So here in this particular case, we just like the query of Mr. X who owning Company A. Company A has cash and trade assets, excess cash, as I said. They want to use that cash for investment properties or purposes now, but they'd still like to be able to loan money between them. So, they decide, well, on this basis, it's probably a good idea to create a group. The key thing, there's release here, but the key thing for these releases is that there must be a bona fide commercial reason for doing the transaction. And one of the main or purposes can't be the avoidance of tax, so always keep that in your head. So in this particular case, what we'll be saying is, in this particular case, would be to create a new company which is owned by Mr. X initially. Then, subsequent to that, NewCo offers to purchase the shares from Mr. X that he owns in Company A, in return for Mr. X receiving shares in NewCo. So effectively, you can see this same person that owned the company, Company A now owns the new holdco. So the proportions haven't changed, and that's required for some of the release. So in this particular case now, at the end of the day, we have a new holdco which owns Company A. So now we can say dividend up money up to NewCo. You can do that, you can make the section 434 3A election so that it's not surchargeable in NewCo, assuming the Company A is a trading company. And from there, they can make their investments or deal with the excess cash in relation to that from that perspective. So what reliefs from a tax perspective are we looking at here? So Mr. X here initially owned Company A, so he's disposing of his interest there over to new holdco. So technically there's a CGT there, but section 584, 586 relieves the CGT there such that the base cost moves over to Mr. X's new shares that he was issued in NewCo at that point in time. So that deals with the CGT for Mr. X. Also, NewCo is exposed to stamp duty potentially because they're buying shares, so stamp duty is obviously, there's going to be share transfer done, so there'll be stamp duty. But Section 80 relief applies here in this particular case now, whereby once you claim the relief, you submit your stamp duty form and claim the Section 80 relief. Because you've maintained the same proportions, there hasn't been any cash element. You've acquired more than 90% of the company. In that particular case, there is no stamp duty arising in that particular transaction. And I suppose just in relation to the CGT treatments for Mr. X, going back to that, it was important that NewCo got control of the company, which he did. He got 100% of the shares of Company A on acquisition in this particular case. From a company secretarial point of view then, what you need to consider, well, NewCo is acquiring Company A, so that there is a connected company, so you need to make sure there's an ordinary resolution done as required by Section 238 to permit the acquisition of Company A, so that needs to be carried out. NewCo would have a board meeting detailing the fact that they're going to acquire these shares in relation of Company A, and the reason for it, and it's for the benefit of the company in relation to it. And they'll agree that they'll do an offer letter to Mr. X, the owner of Company A, in order to acquire those shares. Company A will then have a board meeting discussing the fact that that there's going to be a transfer here. It isn't the best interest of the company in this particular case. So then, once that's done, you got your NewCo has sent out the offer letter to Mr. X, and that offer letter is conditional on obtaining control. Mr. X, signs the offer letter. Then you do your share transfer form. You go through your normal company secretarial procedures for that in that regard. So you can see here, just I suppose for the NewCo, if it's a DAC, let's say, in order to get the stamp duty relief, what will need to happen is that there will be specific object clause need to be put into a DAC memo and articles of association stating that the purpose of the company was to acquire the shares of Company A. That's required in order to get Section 80 relief. If you're an LTD, you don't have it, or you can't have an objects, and you don't have an objects. In that particular case, what Revenue has said in the Finance Act is that, I suppose, the issuance of the shares covers off the requirement for Section 80. But I know some people still do like to increase their authorised share capital, potentially saying that the authorised share capital is increased in order to acquire a company in this particular case, so that it's set in stone, but that's no longer specifically required. So you can see here, it's not an overly complex transaction. There are a lot of reliefs involved in order that there be no tax consequences either. Now, after the transaction, Company A can pay up any excess cash through dividends. Newco can invest them. There's no risk that the investment or the cash up in Newco will be at risk if Company A fails, because it's separate and is separate from Company A in this particular case. I hope you've found this helpful. We have a webinar on this and group structures on Friday the 20th of July. So if you're interested, please log in. Thank you.